everyone. Uh, this is Heather Venegas, and thanks for joining us for King County Recovery Conversations. Today, I'm joined virtually in the studio with Thomas Jackson. Thomas is a passionate advocate for personal growth, community empowerment, and mental health awareness. As the program director for the Washington Peer Network, a founding member of Heart Work to Hard Work, nonprofit organization, and CEO of Let's Get Human LLC, he is dedicated to transforming lives through his lived experiences. With the release of his debut book, Let's Get Human, Thomas shares a powerful message of resilience, self-discovery, and the importance of authentic human connections. His work inspires individuals to embrace their journeys, break barriers, and build a life of purpose. Welcome, Thomas.
Hello, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It definitely feels good to, connect with the Washington Recovery Alliance, and we've done some great work together, and so I'm happy to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time out of your healing to join us. Um,
Yeah.
Thomas and I are here today virtually because Thomas underwent, is it knee surgery?
Yes, yes.
Recently and is recuperating. And so we've climbed onto the Riverside platform so we could host Thomas in a way that would work.
That's
Thomas,
yeah.
wow. I have thought back over the conversation we had about a month ago,
Uh-huh.
and looked over the amazing book you've written that you shared with me before the podcast. And I am just so touched by how your life's journey has led you to sharing and supporting and walking shoulder to shoulder with people as they go through their journeys. And I would just love to start by having you maybe touch a little bit on how you came to write Let's Get Human and what it includes.
Wow, okay. So let's get human. I just, I just wanted people to get, well, let me do some backtracking a little bit before I even jump forward. Um, my uncle, who was like a father to me, God rest his soul, I called him Uncle Pops. And I dedicated this book to him because he was an author. And so his name was Marcus Duran Thomas, right? And so I actually got his last and middle name as my first and middle name. So it's Thomas Duran versus Marcus, Marcus Duran Thomas. It's Thomas Duran Jackson. So that's how the author in me actually came about. But he committed suicide some years ago, and this is the reason why I actually got into this work at all. I was actually struggling mentally after he had passed away, and I just wanted to help other people find a safe space. I wanted to figure out how is it that someone could do this because um, you never think about like the resources for someone until you actually need them, typically in society, right? And so I wanted to create a book that gives people the skills to be mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially well in their lives. And um, so that they had the tools that are necessary to live a balanced life and not just kind of be stuck in that societal space where I have to go depend on someone else for these resources, or I have to pay thousands of dollars for these classes to figure out how to get this done. Like everyone doesn't have thousands of dollars, right? To take the sort of classes that you need for this type of information, in order to have that emotional intelligence, or in order to figure out how to, how to budget, right? I mean, how many people learned before they were 18 how to actually create a budget, right? Uh, right.
Yeah,
Um,
not me.
right, exactly, right. Or even parents learning how to teach their children how to budget, right? And the frustration comes in parenting. It comes from children because they don't know how to live a successful life by doing these things that help them live a life that's balanced and well. And so I wanted to create that because I struggled and throughout my entire life. I mean, I was in foster care, juvenile detention centers. I've been to jail. I've been to prison, and at none of that time, from the time I was 11, in and out of the system till the time I was 27. And so I didn't really have someone to really show me how to figure these things out until I actually, it became a dire need for my life to work on my behavioral health and, figure out these other tools that I needed to be well.
I love how your intention is to make this workbook accessible to everyone and
Yeah.
to not allow the cost to be a barrier and to bring the types of exercises and worksheets and guidance that you do find in very expensive retreats and worksheets. And I can say, as someone who has been to many and also facilitated several, that you have just included so much in your book. I was really touched by that. It's beautifully written, and I encourage anyone that has the opportunity to rush over to Amazon and get Let's Get Human. There's something for everyone, and I was thinking one of the definitions that I've heard for recovery, and I know there's a lot, and we talk about it. It's like getting back what was lost, but another one is a return to wholeness. And I love how this is a holistic approach that you touch on every area of our life, because in order to thrive in resilience and recovery, we do need to focus on all those different areas and learn those ways of thriving that maybe we didn't receive growing up or throughout our earlier adulthood. I love that, because just because I stopped putting drugs and alcohol in my body and
Yes.
30 years ago, it didn't come with a manual for how to do these things. And it's wonderful. I mean, the work I've done in recovery on myself and healing and forgiveness has all played a part in the quality of my life, but there's always something more to learn and another degree, I think, of awareness and healing that we can get. And I just was so touched by what a gift your book is to the community. So thank you so
Oh,
much for
thank
writing
you.
it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for bringing it out to us. I'd love to have you give us some examples, but I also want to hear your story, Thomas, and I'm not sure which direction to go. I guess the first question I'd like to ask about an example for your story is, as you have just undergone knee surgery and you're off work healing and recuperating, what practices have you utilized from Let's Get Human in your healing journey?
Oh, wow. I've written a lot of letters to myself. Um, and I had to ask myself, just mental blocks, going through this recovery process. It's I've had a lot of mental blocks going into it,
Mhm.
like from, just, okay, what am I going to do next? The book's out. How am I going to, get to, have I gotten over all of the things, right? So even though I wrote the book, I still have to practice the book. This is not something that I just, you write or you just read it and then you're like, okay, cool. The tools, I got them. I'm not using them, right? It's something that I do for myself, and I would never ask someone to do this work if I didn't have to do it myself. And the biggest part of this healing process, even for me, I mean, I broke down the other day because I was really struggling, just with still struggling with some of the sexual abuse that I had as a kid, and I was writing this letter to myself because I held myself back from so much in my life because I held on to the anger, right? And I held on to, and I was like, man, I'm sure I've forgiven this person, right? But I just haven't forgotten. And every time that comes up for me when I'm in a quiet place, it's like, we don't want to be in a quiet place and have to sit still and really think about what's going on inside of us, because once we do, it gets a lot louder than we expected. Right. And so I literally had to sit down here, and I actually have the pad here, and write a letter of forgiveness, not only to myself, but again to the person that caused that harm to me, and let it go. I had to do a lot of reflecting on my life, like not only on the good parts of my life, but also the asshole that I was, right? Because I mean, no one's perfect. I mean, let's be honest, right? We all have had our asshole moments, okay? And,
Guilty.
right? Right? And so just, sitting back and, allowing myself to say, hey, Thomas, yes, this is a part of who you are, and to embrace just myself, right? Continually, I have to continually embrace myself, because there's some things that are traumatic in my life, and some things that are not traumatic in my life that I just didn't accept about me, right? And I'm like, well, how do I get over this anger or this frustration with self? Like, what happened in my life that um that caused me to have these types of actions? And I was telling a friend of mine, I said, as a kid, we used to play this game called Drive By. Okay, this was a game, but it was a game of survival. And what would happen is, with this game is, people would drive around the corner, and if they had their headlights on, we would all duck behind cars. And the last one to duck behind the car was the person that didn't live. It got killed, right, so to speak. And it was us learning how to protect ourselves from drive-by shootings,
Right.
because they happen so frequently, as a kid. And I just cried about that. It really, like, I was like, that's not normal. Like, that's not normal, a normal life, to have
Mhm.
to play survival games. But in so many spaces for children, that's a normal thing, right? But those are some things that are not talked about. Those are not conversations that we have. And how do we get, and this is what this book is about, how do we get them the resources? How do we get people the resources? How do we show them the type of love that they need in order to live a successful life? Sorry, I'm speaking with I'm very passionate about this
I
subject.
love it. There
So,
is nothing wrong with passion, and passion and purpose are something you speak to, and helping
yes,
people discover what theirs are. And
yes.
what was your life like that led you to this purpose that so clearly you have um, taken on the mantle of and said, yes, I will, and are just running with it, helping others? How did you get there?
You know, um, I realized I realized this week, that the safest place in my life for me has always been by myself, away from everyone. And I'll get to how I got there. When I was about 5 to 6 years old, um, I was molested by my mother's brother, her youngest brother. And we would go to church. He would be at church. I would stay at my grandfather's house. And, he, told me that, if I said anything, he was going to kill me. And, God wasn't safe for me, even though I went to church and I believed in spirituality. I was angry at God. I was angry at my family. I was angry at, you know, um, just everything, but I had to hold it in. And so I learned to be this jokester as a kid, because having emotion where I'm from, or being a crier where I'm from, is just not a thing. You either are a lion or you're a lamb, right? And so, um, moving on, I moved with my father, and it was hard. My mom was a single mother of six, and she did absolutely the best that she could. And, I can honestly say that we may have had peas a few nights, more nights than I'd like, but, but, we never went without a meal. And I've watched her just have grit to make it happen, with the help of my uncle, my other uncle, Marcus, who was like a father to me, and my aunts and things like that. And so My mom had definitely, but it was her. She was a grinder. My mom was she did not give up. My father, unfortunately, had succumbed to the drug epidemic. He was on drugs since he was 15 years old. So I've never known my father to be. I've never known who he was. I've just always known his addiction. Until actually we were in prison together at 27. He was my cellmate for a while, and so I got to see my father sober but diagnosed schizophrenic, and so that's pretty much the majority. But me and my father, when I moved with him when I was 9, he was very abusive, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And I went through that for a number of years. At the age of 11, I was in foster care, and then I was in juvenile detention center, and then I went back into foster care, and went to um, a group home, went to jail, and then later on graduated to prison. But throughout all of this time, I was just alone. I had no one to trust. I was angry. I was frustrated. Like I played sports when I was in the group home and did very well for myself. I actually had an offer from Santa Rosa JC to go there, but I always kept my grades up. It was like that was my outlet. The success, being successful, was my way of fighting back, of not giving up, of not quitting. And was homeless at 16, and had to leave school. Um, my senior year, actually, I stayed with a friend of mine, Greg Meyer. He was an older guy. He just took me in, like literally just took me in and let me stay with him. And he um, he was a blessing for me. But I've always had, I like to call them uncles or aunts, or family members and these are just people that just were in my life, that like my uncle Anthony, and my uncle Vel, like these guys were when I was 11. Like me and my brother stayed with them. When my dad was using drugs right before I got into foster care. And they would let us stay with them, and it was like a bunch of in Oakland. You got the OG, so it's like 15 of them on the weekend, and they really made sure we went to school, but they also taught us, the game. They taught us how to be smooth operators, so have charisma, be loyal, be honest, you know what I'm saying? Have a brotherhood. And so throughout my life, it's just been like an interchange of, but I always knew that there was something better. When I went to this one foster home, I met my foster mom Brandy and my foster dad Russ, and he was just, man. I mean, he was from the military, but he was just on point. He was like, "You are not." Like laid down the law. He was like, "You better not curse in front of your mom. You better not do this," like all of this stuff. And but my foster mom had this nurturing love that I never experienced in my life, right? And it was just so peaceful. But I was so used to chaos that I thought that the way that they were living was wrong, if that makes sense. And so like I would get in trouble, and I just had a lot of hurt from all the traumatic experience. I mean, I was committing robberies when I was 9 years old, just so that me and my brother could have, or 10 years old, just so that me and my brother could have food, and stuff like that. And we'd be left with like $20 for a week to survive. And so I was selling drugs at that time, and so I literally lived the life of an adult as a kid, and not really understood the balance between childhood. And so that's why people ask me, "Why are you joking all the time? You're never serious." I'm like, I don't want to be. I'll not be serious till I'm 95. Okay, so just get over it. But I got to this point where my heart, after my uncle, who was like my father, passed away, Uncle Pops, um, my heart shattered.
Yeah.
And I had never been so hurt in my entire life. I've never felt a pain like this, where I actually did not want to live anymore. Um, and because I felt like I was going to be on this earth alone, right? I felt like I didn't have anybody to talk to. Like we talked every week. Like it was just a thing. Like he was my person, like my uncle, he's my dad. And when he left, um, I just fought it. I fought mentally. I had friends come over. I said, "Hey, I don't feel, safe by myself. Can you come stay with me?" Um, and um, and I was just like, I already knew that I've been going to counseling prior to, you know, and so, but this was a different type of level of hurt. So finally, I just said, you know what? I'm gonna become a peer counselor because I want to help people that are in my situation. And so I became a peer counselor, and I just dove in. I mean, I did 38 trainings my first year. I mean, I just dove. I was like, I need all the tools to help as many people as possible. But in that time, there was a peer of mine that accidentally completed suicide, right? And so I started facing secondary trauma. And I'm like, Lord, are you trying to set me up? What's going on? And I realized throughout this journey, like, of like healing, of rehealing, of uh understanding understanding my own emotions, right? Understanding all the things that I've been through, really deep diving into my own closet of adversity where I just did not want to go into, like diving in there and being broken by my own self. I had to break myself in order to become a new person, right? Because I wasn't always like Thomas, hey, this is Thomas Jackson. No, I was real hood. Okay. Okay. It was different energy, I promise. And, I got out of the gang life and the street life and all those other things. And I can honestly say that the reason I wrote this is because I want people to have a tool that they can use to not to by themselves to take their own journey to healing. Like everybody always says, "Oh, well, you need to do this or you need to do that." Well, how? How am I supposed? Well, you should definitely create a budget so you can get your finances in order. Well, where's the outline for that? I don't have $1,000 if I'm homeless to pay for this. What programs are teaching this? Who has the actual outline for us to just get started? For us to create about spirituality. Like, yes, I believe in God, but I also understand a lot of different other religions that I utilize those practices for my life. If any religion I am, it's love. I truly believe in love, right? So that I can embrace everybody and the tools that I need for the journey that I'm on, then great, I'll utilize those tools. And the other ones, I just put them on the shelf, right? But in order for me to really embrace who I am, I have to love every part of me so that I can give that love to everyone else. And this is the way that I did it.
Beautiful. I love that. And when we were talking earlier, I, you mentioned how you explored different spiritualities and religions, and found those things that resonated with your heart, and
Yeah.
took them on. And I did the same thing in my journey, and
Yeah.
I just love that. And finding those pieces that work for us, I think, is so valuable. And creating, our own personal, authentic spiritual practices with
Yeah.
those things that connect us to our
Yes.
higher power. And I love, like, love is what it's all about. And my higher power is love and loving.
Yes.
Uh, and one of the things I remember my sponsor years ago, when I was doing a second step, I got into recovery in a 12-step fellowship. She had me write a classified ad, wanted for my higher power, and I had to describe all the characteristics and traits that my higher power had. And it was so healing to get to come up with my own idea of
Yeah.
what that looked like, and what my higher power wasn't. My higher power wasn't
Yeah.
punishing. My higher power wasn't conditional the way
Yes.
people who had failed me in my life were,
Yes.
or judged me.
Yes.
So anything we can do, I think, to personalize our experience of the divine, just opens up and allows us to have that richer connection with a
So,
higher power.
and I want to explain this word love for me, right? And my if I can, just really
Of
quickly.
course.
So love for me is in, how can I say? unconditional commitment. That's what that means. So when I love myself, I'm committing to my growth. I'm committing to being kind to myself. I'm committing to being understanding. I'm committing to being patient. I'm committing to being happy with myself. I'm committing to correcting myself and allowing myself to be corrected. So outside of my emotions, right? Because emotions I feel are separate from love. And I think that people get those things intertwined, right? And I think that the commitment outside of my emotions for me is what love is, because no matter what I go through or what I feel, I still have to stick to the script. And so loving myself is really just that true commitment to self growth. And that way, when I'm continually growing, I can commit to be kind. I can commit to be, understanding of others. So, and so forth.
Thomas, did you talk about like one of the places where you most experienced love was with your son? Am I right in recalling
Yes,
that?
yes, my son. So I've always, how can I say this? I've always experienced love, but I've never felt it. If that makes sense. I've gone through the motions of love,
Right.
of what it looked like on TV and things like that, and really understood. But when I really understood what love was, is at the moment that I held my son for the first time. And I remember it because I almost passed out in the hospital when he was born. When he was born, and I held him in my arms, and I looked into his eyes, and I saw this look, like I could just remember it like yesterday, and I kid you not, like I cried, like I cried for the first time in my life, and when I did that, I knew that it was pure. Like everything drew me to wanting to be successful for him. Everything drew me to wanting to be successful, and just trying to make sure that I did the right thing, right? The next right thing. I mean, I had contracts for worth $1 million for a sales company that I was gonna be closing, and I walked away from that because I didn't want to be, sales is lying. I'm just gonna be honest, okay? Sometimes in sales you're a liar, okay? I've lied a lot in sales, and I just didn't want to be that person anymore for him. I wanted to have a pure and righteous love uh, for him. And after I figured that part out, I understood that I wanted to have it for myself. And this is it's because of him, my son Royalty, that am the person that I am today. And of course, a handful of people who have helped me get to where I am now.
It's beautiful. Thomas, if you were to take a moment now and share a message with our audience, whoever's listening or watching us in this podcast episode in the um, weeks and months and years to come, what would you like to convey to them?
I would say allow yourself to feel. The only way I truly believe in my soul that a person can heal is if they allow themselves to feel whatever trauma that they've been through. If you have to cry it out, cry it out. If you have to break down for a little bit, break down. If you have to pause life in order to get through that process, go through that process, because that process is really where our strength lies. And that's where we allow ourselves to be our most vulnerable, which for me, the word vulnerable is powerful. So just in order to heal, allow yourself to feel.
Thank you. So, Thomas, I'm going to have you come back and we'll do a second episode and talk all about what is a peer, the Washington Peer Network, and all
Yeah.
that great, juicy stuff once you return to work.
Okay.
Um, Thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find Let's Get Human?
It's on Amazon.com. They can also follow. There's links on my Facebook at Thomas Jackson. on Facebook, so they can look me up. They can also look at my Instagram, which is royalty3500. That's ROYALT 3500. So they can look me up online. I have links posted everywhere. Where I am working on a website right now for the company, so we hopefully soon will have that up and running, and everybody will be able to go on there and they'll be able to look at Let's Get Human .org, and they'll be able to pop on there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Thomas, for
Yes.
coming on today in the midst of your healing and sharing a bit of your story and your journey in this amazing book you've written to share with the world. Thank you to everyone for listening today or watching, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Until then, be well.